Valachi, that's the story of Valachi.
Okay.
And so he never, but he's basically now just Bobby Kennedy's showpiece.
Yeah.
And Bobby tries to stick it up Hoover's because Hoover's denying the existence of the
That's
mob.
pause.
Let's pause for that because that's important.
Yeah, and hold on. We were talking about Valachi though.
Right, that's why I wanted to go back to Valachi before I jump to
But,
Hoover.
okay, let's go to Valachi.
Yeah. And somebody accused me of having ADD. I go, it's Julian. He brings it out of me. So to go back to Valachi, you got skills. That's good. You get everything out.
I'm trying.
You get everything out.
Yeah.
So go back to Valachi. Valachi's the first guy that Bobby's able to put on the stand as the embodiment of this is not some dream I had.
He was a soldier for the mob.
And he's going to testify. All those guys that took the fifth during the McClellan committee, the Rackets committee, forget about those guys. I got a guy right now who's going to tell you everything.
But they tried to blow him up as bigger than he was, though, right? Like he was a lower level soldier.
He was a soldier. He couldn't put nobody away.
But he could describe a making ceremonies like, so I burn this burns in my hand.
30-something murders, too.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy was a killer. No, he's deep. I mean, he's a soldier, but he's deep.
Yes, but he wasn't like a boss. He wasn't a captain.
No. So they put him on the stand, and this is how La Cosa Nostra works, and this is what we do, and you cut the finger, and you do this, and you do that, and you make them another plate of manigot. This is like, and they loved it. Everybody's eating it up, right? Yeah. So like, okay. So they got him up there. Now, what I was able to debunk, this is interesting. Let's rewind when all the books I'm reading says, well, Valachi, Genovese was in jail with him in Atlanta Penitentiary. And he realized that he was a snitch, or he called him a snitch, labeled him a snitch. Valachi tried to check in. They put him back in population. And then he killed this guy. He thought it was Joe Beck di Palermo, another mob guy he thought was going to hit him on Genovese's orders. And that's how he becomes now an informant. It's all bullshit, and I'll tell you why. Okay. Just stop for a moment. Rewind. Yeah. First of all, when he was labeled a rat, historians like to say, but he wasn't a rat then. He was a rat. And the reason why they say he wasn't a rat is because he never ratted on Italians. But if you were in jail like I was, in a penitentiary like I was, I don't care if you're a fellow Italian and you did some drug dealing and you only ratted on blacks and Spanish. You're still a rat to us, guys who stood up, because these blacks and Spanish are agumbadas. These guys are friendly with us. They're our fellow inmates. You can't rat on them either. A rat's a rat. So Valachi historians will say, well, you never ratted on the Italians. But apparently Genovese found out that on his drug beef, on his drug case, he figured, I'm not going to rat on the Italians in the mob, but I'm going to give up some Spanish guys and black guys I was dealing with. Okay, that's still a rat to us. You can't rat on anybody. Right. So I was, look, if Italian goes sour and a black guy stands up, he's my buddy, the black guy. We're standing up doing our time. When I'm in Lewisburg, that's the guy I rely on. Yeah. And he relies on me. We don't rely on a guy, black or Italian, who rats. We don't want nothing to do with them. So that's a lie. That's the first lie. Valachi was a rat. He just wasn't ratting on Italians. When Genovese finds out, Genovese, very strict. He's like, a rat's a rat. Kill him. So now Valachi goes and checks in and says, I need help. Get me out of here. They don't get he's asking for the Narcotics Bureau to come speak with him. He's asking for the FBI. Nobody comes. They toss him back into the population. He knows he's a dead man. Because he checked in. If you check in, a check-in is a rat move in jail. You don't check in. After the murders in Lewisburg, I told you about on the first podcast.
Yeah, what do you mean check-in?
A check-in is, let's say, okay, after the murders, I landed in Lewisburg. There's a double homicide. The Aryan Brotherhood murders 2 black Muslims.
Yeah.
The blacks want to kill now somebody who's white. They're going to get revenge. They have to make a move. So as an Italian, I'm really not thought of as white by the Aryans. And really, blacks know I'm not an Aryan. But if there's no Aryans around, because most of them were shipped out, maybe I'm close enough. So they ask me, when they take me to a meeting, they go, you know anything about the murders? I go, no, of course not. I just landed here. Do you want to check in? Hell no. Are you afraid for your life? Hell no. So a check-in is if, let's say I'm on a compound and I go, okay, so let me explain to you. I went to a prison one time. They asked me when I got taken out of the Max, Lewisburg Penitentiary, they're sending me, they go, you're going to go to a medium now because my security level finally dropped. I didn't have any problems in the pen, right? So now I'm going to a medium. Where do you want to go? The only place I picked is, they go, oh no, the only places I picked, they didn't send me. They sent me to the only place I didn't pick. So I go, so when I get there, I go, why couldn't I go to the places I picked? I wanted to be close to my family, this and that. I have relatives here or there. They go, you got SEPs against you. I go, SEPs? I'm not a rat. Why do I have SEPs? Separations.
Right.
People who put themselves on SEP. Yeah. So I go, I'm not a rat. I got no SEPs. I never put myself on SEP from nobody.
Not a rat.
Right. So they go, no, these guys are afraid of you. They put themselves on SEP from you. So I go, you got to be kidding me. So all these guys who put themselves on SEP from me, whether they were scared of me from a beef on the street, whether they were scared of me over something in jail or maybe on my case somehow, I don't know. Whatever the case is, they go, you got SEPs on you. That's why you couldn't go there. That's so, right. Okay, so it was check-in, getting back to a check-in. I never checked in all those years because a check-in is thought of as a rat move. So let's say I'm on a compound. I got a long-standing beef with you. Maybe, God forbid, I killed your brother and when I was on the street. And now I know when you land on the compound, you're going to want to kill me. So I got two choices. I could try to kill you first or I could check in and say, look, Julian Dorey just landed on the compound. I got a beef with him on the street. I got to check in.
You're going to check in on me?
This is what guys do.
Checking in on me.
Yeah, exactly, right? So you could do that.
I'm going to fuck you up.
You got to get to the hole now. Yeah. You got to get a guard in the hole there who lets you in, or you got to do something.
I'll get there. They'll find you smattered.
Not a rat. Not a rat.
All right, I got the check.
You got it, right?
So Valachi checked in.
Checks in. So now Genovese knows he's a rat. He's like, he just did a check-in.
Fucking rat.
He says when he comes out, kill him. He tells Joe di Palermo, who's a wise guy.
Sounds like a real straight
lower
shooter.
Guy. He tells him, look, clip him hack him to death when he gets out of the hole.
That's a good way to go.
He gets out again. Now Valachi knows. Now Valachi claimed, oh, I piped some guy over the head. This is what I debunked, part 2. First, that he was a rat to start with. Part 2 is he comes out of the hole and he pipes to death a guy who he claims he thought was Joe di Palermo. And he says, oh, I thought it was Joe Beck. I didn't realize it wasn't him. Bullshit. I was in the pen. And we knew if I'm in the yard, I would be sitting, let's say I'm walking the yard with Jimmy Coonan. And a new guy walks in.
Westie's head, Jimmy Coonan.
Jimmy Coonan, head of the Westies. Let's say I'm in Lewisburg, I'm walking the yard with Jimmy. New guy comes in, a newbie. The whole place, including me and Jimmy, would look at him. I go, Jimmy, you know this guy? Like, you know who's in there with you. You live in a very small, confined, congested world.
Yeah, I'm just picturing that.
You're not going to mistake Joe Beck, a guy that Valachi knew for decades.
Well, how good was his eyesight?
Exactly. Give me a break. If I pipe you over the head in jail, I'm piping the right guy, I promise you.
You gotta be careful saying pipe.
Yeah, well.
You're in jail.
Seriously. Yeah, there was a guy in the pen who used to draw these cards for Christmas. This was hilarious. There was a guy who used to draw these cards. It was a convict giving him like a present to another convict, and he opens it up and it's a machete. Which was hilarious, yeah. And another guy had a pipe, another guy had another weapon. So he used to make these cards for people. And you would send them home to your family to let you know you're in a nice place. I didn't, but people do. Mm-hmm. So anyway, he pipes this other guy. What he did was, I've seen people when they want to do a check-in, but they don't want to check in. Okay, so you want to do a check-in, but you don't want to be known as doing a check-in.
Right.
This is what they do.
Do a little end-around check-in.
A little end-around. So what they do is they look for the weakest animal in the herd, and they go punch him in his face or stab him, cut him, and they get taken out of the compound.
Right.
So you could go, oh, I didn't check in, but it's a check-in. So I've seen it done. I saw a guy one time get released onto the tier block with us, and he was terrified of being on the tier block. I don't know who he was afraid of, or if he goes, who's the smallest guy in here? And they go, why? He goes, I'm just curious. They go, oh, probably that guy. Yeah. Miracle I wasn't. A miracle I wasn't. He walks over and cracks this guy, and that's a check-in. And he gets taken out. So that's the fastest way to get off the compound.
I got it.
So Valachi knew. He picked a non-violent forger and he pipes the guy over the head with a lead pipe. The guy lives a few days and then drops dead. And now Valachi gets the attention he wants. He's on a murder rap, and he says, "Oh, I got a lot to say if you want to listen." And now they're listening. He knew he wasn't hitting Joe Beck. He knew Joe Beck di Palermo for decades, and he dealt drugs with Joe Beck di Palermo. You know it's not Joe Beck that you hit. You know, so the government couldn't say, "Oh, he just killed some weak link, and now he's going to be our star witness." They had to say, "Oh, he had to defend himself, so Joe Beck was going to kill him, so he killed Joe Beck first." Either they fed Valachi the story, or Valachi told them, and they nodded along.
I got it. Yeah.
One or the other. If you've been in the
government doesn't feed people stories, Lou. Come
never
on.
Happened.
They would never do that.
No, never happened. Never happened.
They're just they want the real story.
Their nose could go to Saturn and back if they were Pinocchio. Yeah. So, but anyway, and puncture Saturn. We'd just see it to a puff of smoke from Pinocchio's nose. So, P.S. Valachi. That's the story of Valachi.
Okay.
And so he never. But he's basically now just Bobby Kennedy's showpiece.
Yeah.
And Bobby tries to stick it up Hoover's ass because Hoover's denying the existence of the mob. Let's pause for that because that's important. So you said that they had pictures. I couldn't find any evidence that they had compromising pictures of him, other than we know the ones we know they have. I think a guy, Kurt Gentry, might have wrote a book on Hoover, a couple of other people. There's a woman who wrote a Pulitzer Prize-winning biography on Hoover more recently, a few years ago. They might have the pictures. They might be floating online where they look like him and Tulsa are on a honeymoon. Yeah. But there was no compromising. He's not in drag. He's not naked. There's no sexual escapades involved in these pictures that we're familiar with. So I wanted to know where it came from. And it seems to trace back to a couple of rumors at a couple of parties, where people said, "Oh, the mob have pictures on, that's why Hoover doesn't go after them." My deep dive into Hoover led me to believe, and I explain all the sources that in my book, I urge people to read it. It led me to believe that Hoover, he was ultra concerned with threats to the United States government, its institutions, and democracy. So, for example, he focused entirely on communism, because he felt that the communist threat was real. And the Soviets are flexing their muscles. They have all of Eastern Europe at some point. Yep. And he's very concerned about that. And there are communists infiltrated into the U.S. labor movement, and he's extremely concerned with communist infiltration of the American government, and those were his real enemies. Now, why didn't he want to go after the mob? So these he feared, the communists are a threat to the United States, he feels, Hoover. And even though maybe it was a little more overblown than people think it was, maybe it wasn't, maybe he was accurate, whatever the case is, he feels those are the threat. Why isn't the mob a threat? The mob loves capitalism and they love democracy.
We love that in America.
Love it. They like manipulating ballot boxes. They like underwriting campaigns for politicians. They like bribing police commissioners. They like the American system.
That's democracy.
They like the preservation of human rights, of individual rights. They like this. They could beat people in court. They could lawyer up. They could win trials. They like the American system. The mob has never been a threat. 10 hippies with anti-war protest signs are more of a threat to Hoover than an entire mafia across the country. Because those hippies are against what he believed, Hoover. Okay, you're protesting the war? That's a decision that was made in Washington. You have no right. You're a threat to the United States security, threat to the United States government. I believe, and we shouldn't get too far into this, but I believe that Martin Luther King, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, became a severe target of Hoover.
Oh, he was.
When, not only for his civil rights activities, but when he won the Nobel Prize, the Peace Prize, and then he started to speak out against the Vietnam War. Whoa, now you're causing a lot of uncomfortable situations for me as the FBI director in the country, and now you're also speaking on an international level. He's a threat to Hoover. So anybody like that threatens Hoover, but the mob, as we covered in Volume 1 of Borgata Trilogy.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.